The end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024 has been a phenomenal time to be a gamer. Games like Baldur's Gate 3, Palworld, Enshrouded, Last Epoch, and Helldivers 2 have reminded gamers that there are developers out there that simply want to make a good game. Then, with Stellar Blade and Final Fantasy VII Remake on the horizon ready to bust down the floodgates of fan service for the gaming community after years of sad and frankly unattractive character designs, it's not hard to feel like we're living in a new renaissance of gaming. But what does that even mean? And more importantly, will these trends actually be a permanent change to the industry? For years, we've been fed a diet of unrelenting monetization and political correctness in games from greedy companies only interested in the profit margins of their stockholders and submitting to a screeching subset of the gaming community. And the games that they give us as a result are very simply not good games. Redfall, Skull and Bones, Halo Infinite, Fable, Forsaken, Starfield, and Suicide Squad are some of the more recent examples I can think of. I'm sure you have a list of your own awful games flavored with your own preferences. And because they're not good games, they fail to be commercially successful. And then we get Palworld, a success story unlike anything we've ever seen before, a game that simply takes the best parts of the survival genre, throws in cute character designs and a splash of disturbing yet hilarious options, and releases it to the public for a reasonable early access price, and no signs of egregious monetization anywhere. As a result of those decisions, they've gained 25 million players across Xbox and PC in a little over a month. Recently, Helldivers 2 and Last Epoch have been literally crushed under the weight of their success. These small companies were expecting tens of thousands of players, but their servers were destroyed by almost 500,000 players trying to get in to play the game. Both made an amazing game, and their respective companies weren't prepared to handle that wave of success. However, even though those players are upset and angry at the technical issues at launch, they're only angry because they can't play either of those games. I haven't purchased Helldivers 2 or Last Epoch, so I don't know the smaller details of the game, and I'm pretty sure both of those games do have an in-game cosmetics store, but I don't know the pricing schemes or the details, so I can't say much about it. Then there's Halo Infinite and Diablo 4, games that have famously underdelivered in the quality of the game itself for the price that those companies were asking you to pay, and then had big price tags on their cosmetics on top of that. As a result, both games on Steam are looking at 24-hour player counts of about 7,500 players. Instead, those players are playing Helldivers 2 and Last Epoch. Now let's move away from monetization and talk about jiggly bits, particularly the female character designs for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Stellar Blade. For reasons that only a psychiatrist could explain, there are a lot of people wildly offended that ShiftUp, who are the developers of Stellar Blade, have created very attractive female characters for their upcoming title. The screeching that popped up as a result has been nothing less than entertaining, to say the least, especially with the lead dev chiming in and doubling down on their character design decisions. Regardless of how some people feel about what they call problematic female character design, the truth of the matter is that the game is being celebrated even before its release because the devs aren't shying away from the design, going so far as to bring their reasoning into the mix, stating that focusing on the main character's backside was done because that's what the players will be looking at most of the time. Now, let's be honest, they're not wrong. Opinions of the character design doesn't really matter in the end, of course. Whether the game is good or not is the bottom line, and we'll find out what that's like when it releases. But the fact that the devs confirmed that there will be no microtransactions is certainly another great selling point, and let's be honest, kind of a jab at the bigger companies. More recently, Square Enix released a swimsuit teaser featuring Tifa, which has thrown Twitter X into a frenzy, further bringing the topic of female sexuality into the spotlight. But for every one player that will refuse to buy the game because Tifa is sexy, there are thousands upon thousands of others that will. And that's not even taking the gameplay and story into account, since Final Fantasy VII is probably the most famous game of the series. So not only have I never played 7, 8 was my first Final Fantasy game and 9 is my favorite, so I really don't have an opinion on the story of 7. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be a wild success thanks to high-definition nostalgia, and Stellar Blade is going to jiggle its way into the Steam charts in part because the devs embraced the reality of female sexuality. And, good business practices. In the end, sexy stuff sells regardless of your moral opinions on the matter, and the goodwill of a loyal player base is priceless. All of these success stories and corporate failures are pointing to a renaissance in the gaming industry, and if by some miracle the suits at the big game companies realize it, they may actually capitalize on the shift and start letting their developers make games that are simply good games. Games that wind up bringing the company success as well as the goodwill of its player base, with characters that players actually like without having the message shoved down their throats in an effort to appease the shrieking masses. Just a quick look at Forsaken will show us just what good pandering will do to the success of a game. Baldur's Gate 3 proved that a fairly priced RPG with a huge world and in-depth story is still possible. Palworld proved that you don't need a colossal budget to make the most successful game launch we've ever seen. Helldivers 2 highlighted what Halo Infinite players could have had, and Last Epoch is showing Diablo 4 what's up, and Path of Exile 2 will do the same soon enough. Stellar Blade is highlighting the appeal of attractive female protagonists as a selling point, in addition to being a complete product out of the box with no microtransactions for the multiple cosmetics that are going to be earnable through gameplay. There are going to be headlines talking about how successful the game is soon enough. I'm just, predicting it here. But the reality of our current gaming renaissance comes down to 2 words. What's next? It's been stated that there will be no new first-party games for PS5 until next year, and I honestly have no idea what Xbox is doing or planning. It's my opinion that if indie studios continue to make wildly successful games without pandering to the screeching subset, without trying to squeeze every dime from players who may already be dealing with tight wallets thanks to the current economic climate, we might see 2025 continue the indie success trend, and then the big AAA companies might actually try to make a good game as a result. And then if those companies start to shift their focus away from what the shrieking masses demand, instead of simply making good games with good characters, we may find ourselves in a gaming industry that is filled to the brim with good games. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. You're welcome.